Jennifer Kesse is the one who's been missing since January 24th, 2006. And for every moment since then, her parents have kept hope alive. The investigation is narrowing a bit now as investigators focus on the seemingly littlest of things that may be adding up to a break, potentially. Fox 13's Evan Axelbank reports.
On January 24th, 2006, someone parked a black 2004 Chevrolet Malibu at an apartment complex in Orlando, Florida, and walked away. A surveillance camera at the complex photographed the person once every 3 seconds. 3 images were captured. In every single one, the person's face was blocked by the vertical bars of a chain-link fence. The car belonged to Jennifer Kesse. She was 24 years old. She had bought the car herself with money from a job she was good at, in a city she had chosen to live in a condominium she was proud to own. She was the kind of person who called her parents on her drive home from work. She was the kind of person who called her boyfriend every morning before she left the house. That morning, she didn't call. Her phone went straight to voicemail. She didn't arrive at work. She has never been seen again.
The lives of Drew and Joyce Kesse turned upside down the morning he got a call that Jennifer hadn't shown up for work.
We look for Jennifer pretty much every day.
It seems like an eternity. It seems that this is still, we're living in a surreal state.
A search that began with flyers and word of mouth in Jennifer's Orlando neighborhood has led them on a winding road.
And the only image of the person who took her car and left it a mile away, the person who may have been the last to see her alive, is an image of someone whose face the fence refused to reveal. This is the case of Jennifer Kesse, and this is the open file. Jennifer Joyce Kesse was born on May 20th, 1981, in New Jersey. She grew up in Tampa, Florida, the kind of upbringing that is described by the people who lived it and the people who watched it, with a specific and uncomplicated word: good. Good family, good schools, good friends. She graduated from Gaither High School in 1999 and enrolled at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. She joined Alpha Delta Pi sorority. She was, by every account, the kind of person others wanted to be around. Warm, social, confident, without being loud. She earned her degree in finance in the spring of 2003. After graduation, she stayed in Orlando. She took a job at Central Florida Investments timeshare company in Ocoee, a finance position, the kind of work her degree was built for. Within a year, she had been promoted twice. Her parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, described her as someone who moved through the world with purpose. She knew what she wanted, and she went and got it. In 2005, she met Rob Allen at a tiki bar in downtown Orlando. He lived in Fort Lauderdale, 3 hours away. The relationship was long distance but consistent. Daily phone calls, weekend visits, a routine that both of them kept. And then, in late 2005, Jennifer did something she had been working toward for a long time. She bought her own condominium, Mosaic at Millenia, an upscale gated complex in Orlando near the mall at Millenia. A second-floor unit, her unit, bought with her own money, earned at her own job in the city she had chosen. She was 24. She was building a life, and she was proud of it. The weekend before she disappeared, Jennifer traveled to St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands with Rob. It was a vacation, sun, water, the ordinary happiness of two people who have carved out time to be together. She flew back to Florida on Sunday, January 22nd. She spent that night at Rob's home in Fort Lauderdale. Early Monday morning, she drove the 3 hours back to Orlando, straight to work. She did not go home first. She had been away for the weekend, and the work week was waiting. That evening, January 23rd, she left work around 6 o'clock. She called her parents while driving home. Drew and Joyce were in Bradenton, a 2-hour drive south. The call was ordinary. Jennifer talked about her day. She talked about the trip. She arrived home at Mosaic at Millenia, the first time she had been back since leaving for vacation. At 10 o'clock that night, she talked to Rob on the phone. They said goodnight. It was the last confirmed conversation anyone had with Jennifer Kesse. There is nothing in that evening that suggests what was coming. No distress, no argument, no strange call, no unexpected visitor, no sound from the hallway. She came home from a vacation. She called the people she loved. She went to bed. And then the morning came. Rob Allen expected a call. He and Jennifer had a routine. She would call or text him before she left for work each morning. It was a small thing, the kind of thing that, when it stops, you notice. On the morning of January 24th, 2006, the call didn't come. Rob tried her phone. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. He chalked it up to a morning meeting she had mentioned. He went to work. Jennifer did not arrive at her office. Her employer called her parents. Drew and Joyce Kesse began the 2-hour drive from Bradenton to Orlando. On the way, they asked the manager of Jennifer's condominium complex to check her unit with a spare key. He reported that everything appeared normal inside, but her car was missing from its parking space. When Drew and Joyce arrived at approximately 3 in the afternoon, they found a home that looked like someone had left for work that morning and simply not come back. A wet towel near the shower, clothes laid out, signs that she had dressed, gathered her things prepared for the day. Her purse was gone. Her cell phone was gone. Her keys, her iPod, her briefcase, all missing. The outfit she had been wearing was gone. The front door was locked. No sign of forced entry. No sign of a struggle inside the condo.
Her car was found a mile from her home, with her dad saying there may have been a struggle. Surveillance video shows a potential person of interest parking her car and walking away. After years of inaction, they sued Orlando police for the case file.
It exhausts you. It drains you physically, mentally, and emotionally, and it will in time take a toll on your actual physical health.
With FDLE at the helm, there are signs of hope. The Kesses are working with an AI firm to study not just the 16,000-page case file for unsung clues, but also to analyze this video.
The Orlando Police Department was called, and because Jennifer was an adult, because there was no obvious evidence of a crime inside the condo, the initial response was the initial response that families of missing adults receive everywhere. She may have left on her own. She may come back. We will take a report. Drew and Joyce Kesse knew their daughter. They knew she would not simply not show up for work. They knew she would not simply not call her boyfriend. They knew she would not simply vanish from a life she had built with intention and care. They printed flyers that evening and saturated the area around Mosaic at Millenia with her face. 2 days later, on the morning of January 26th, a tenant of the Huntington on the Green apartment complex saw a news report about Jennifer's disappearance and called the police. A black Chevy Malibu had been sitting in the complex's parking lot near the pool area for several days. It had not moved. Police confirmed the vehicle was Jennifer's. Huntington on the Green was a little over a mile from Mosaic at Millenia. It was, by multiple accounts, a high-crime area, the kind of place where a parked car might go unnoticed or unremarked upon for days. It was not the kind of place Jennifer had any known connection to. What investigators found on the car was not much. A latent fingerprint, a small DNA fiber, a large boot print near the gas pedal, and on the hood, marks that Detective Julius Gorse of the Orlando Police Department described in his report as what appeared to have been someone being pushed across the head of the vehicle. Years later, when the Kesse family obtained the case files through their lawsuit, they saw the photographs for the first time. Drew Kesse described them this way. It looked like someone was thrown down on the top of the hood, arms spread out and then dragged back, almost like off the hood, to the point where you can almost see fingers scribbling down the hood. Mike Toretta, a former federal agent and private investigator hired by the family, confirmed the assessment. The photos look suspicious and show what appears to be a hand mark going across the hood.
With every publicly available photo database.
An ear is just like an eye or a fingerprint. It's very unique to a person. When we find the ear, then we find a person.
Even more reason for hope is that new DNA samples were tested last year, with investigators closer than ever to identifying several people they'd like to speak to. But her parents are only left to speculate, for now.
A witness, speaking on condition of anonymity years later, told Fox News she had seen Jennifer's black Malibu swerving near the exit to Mosaic at Millenia on the morning of January 24th. The car was moving erratically, she said. It looked as though two people were fighting over the steering wheel. Whatever happened to Jennifer Kesse? It left traces on the outside of her car. It did not leave much else. The car had been wiped down. Valuables were left inside. A DVD player, other items. But Jennifer's phone, her purse, her keys, her iPod, her briefcase, and the clothes she had worn that morning were all gone. Her phone was off. It would never be turned on again. Her bank account was never accessed again. The surveillance cameras at Huntington on the Green captured something. Not enough, but something. At approximately noon on January 24th, the day Jennifer disappeared, an unidentified person was recorded parking her black Chevy Malibu near the pool area and walking away. The camera snapped a photograph once every 3 seconds. 3 images captured the person in frame. In all 3, the vertical bars of a chain link fence were positioned directly between the camera lens and the person's face. The FBI was brought in to analyze the footage. They estimated the person stood between 5'3" and 5'5", with notably large feet for their height. NASA was asked to enhance the images. The enhancement could not defeat the fence. The person appeared to be dressed in workman's clothing, possibly a uniform of the kind worn by maintenance, construction, or landscaping workers. No one in Jennifer's family recognized the individual. No witness came forward to identify them. Mike Toretta, the former DEA agent who re-examined the case, said plainly, "This person holds the key to solving the case." And for 20 years, that person has walked through the world unidentified. 3 frames, 3 bars of a fence, the face of whoever took Jennifer Kesse's car and left it in a parking lot a mile from her home has never been seen by the public. It is one of the most discussed surveillance images in American true crime. Not because of what it shows, but because of what it refuses to show. After the car was found, an Orange County Sheriff's bloodhound named Bo was brought to the scene. The dog took a scent from the driver's seat of Jennifer's Malibu and pulled its handler, Sergeant Jeff Brown, at a loping pace for a mile. The trail led straight back to Mosaic at Millenia, Jennifer's complex, an upscale gated fenced community with 24-hour security. But the bloodhound did not lead to the front gate. The trail bypassed the complex's only entrance. Instead, Bo led the handler to a stretch of fence separating the public sidewalk from the private grounds of the complex. The dog picked up the scent inside the fence and went directly to a staircase leading to Jennifer's second-floor condominium. The person who drove Jennifer's car to Huntington on the Green and walked away walked back to her complex, not through the front gate, through or along the fence line, and then up the stairs to her building. No other evidence was found along the route, but the scent trail is consistent with a theory that has haunted this case from the beginning. Whoever took Jennifer may have lived or worked inside the same complex where she lived. They may have walked back to the very place she was taken from. In January 2006, Mosaic at Millenia was undergoing a major conversion from apartments to condominiums. Construction was active. Workers were on the property every day. And according to the Kesse family, some of those workers were also living in vacant condos on the site. Jennifer had told her parents repeatedly that she was uncomfortable around the construction and maintenance workers. Joyce Kesse said they would just stop and leer when they saw her. Drew Kesse added, "Whenever workers entered her apartment for painting and repairs, Jen was always on the phone with us. She'd stay on the phone in the doorway of her condo until they had left." A woman is uncomfortable in her own home. She calls her parents when workers enter her space. She stays on the phone until they are gone. And then one morning she leaves for work and does not arrive. And a person in workman's clothing is filmed parking her car a mile away, and a bloodhound tracks that person's scent back to the staircase outside her condo. A person of interest known only as Chino, a former maintenance worker at Mosaic who had a criminal record and was out on parole at the time of Jennifer's disappearance, was identified years later. He had done work in Jennifer's unit shortly before she vanished. A private investigator tracked him down and interviewed him in prison. He was never charged. Due to the language barrier, many of the construction workers were non-English speaking. Investigators were unable to interrogate a significant number of them. No comprehensive record of who was living in the vacant units at Mosaic appears to have been maintained. Workers came and went. The complex was under renovation. The security that a gated community promises was, in this moment, porous. It is impossible to know whether the answer to this case was standing on a scaffold outside Jennifer's window, but it is not unreasonable to consider it. The Orlando Police Department investigated Jennifer's disappearance for 13 years. In that time, no arrests were made. No person of interest was publicly named beyond the unidentified figure in the surveillance footage. The case did not advance toward resolution. Drew and Joyce Kesse grew to believe that the investigation had been mishandled, that evidence had not been properly collected, that witnesses had not been thoroughly interviewed, that the scene at Mosaic at Millenia had not been secured with the urgency that a young woman's disappearance demanded. In December 2018, they filed a lawsuit against the Orlando Police Department, an unprecedented action in a missing person case. They wanted the files, all of them. Every page, every photograph, every interview transcript, every piece of evidence the department had gathered or failed to gather in 13 years of work. The city settled in March 2019. The Kesse family received more than 16,000 pages of documents, video, and audio. What they found in those pages deepened their conviction that the investigation had been inadequate. Evidence that was never processed. Leads that were never pursued. A crime scene that was never fully secured on the morning a woman disappeared from a gated complex with 24-hour security. the Orlando Police Department closed their investigation in 2019. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement took over. A private investigator, Michael Toretta, was hired by the family. He reviewed the files. He re-interviewed witnesses. He identified potential new leads. And he developed a theory that is as simple as it is terrifying. Jennifer may have been accosted from behind as she locked her front door, possibly forced into a vacant apartment across the hallway, a unit she would have passed on her way out. She might not have had a chance to fight back, Toretta said. Whatever happened to Jennifer happened fast. In October 2025, nearly 20 years after Jennifer disappeared, her parents posted an update on the Find Jennifer Kesse Facebook page. They had met with special agents from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The agents told them that investigators had found DNA on evidence that was never tested, not evidence that had been tested and came back empty, evidence that had simply never been sent to a lab, that had sat in a file, in a box, in a storage room, while the woman it might have helped find was declared legally dead, and her parents drove 2 hours to an empty condo and drove home again. FDLE also told the Kesse family that they had significantly narrowed the pool of people they believe could have information about what happened to their daughter. Drew and Joyce Kesse used a word they had not used in a very long time: hopeful. They are definitely hyped up and moving forward quickly, they wrote. The case, they were told, is no longer considered cold. It has been 20 years. Jennifer Kesse was declared legally dead in 2016. But the investigation, the real investigation, the one that tests the evidence and chases the leads, and does not accept that a face behind a fence must remain hidden forever, is, for the first time, moving with urgency. Drew and Joyce Kesse have not stopped. That sentence is insufficient, but it is also the only one that matters. They have not stopped. They drove 2 hours to Orlando on the afternoon of January 24th, 2006, and they have been driving ever since. Not always to Orlando, sometimes to the ends of Shensuo, sometimes to the doors of agencies that would not open them, sometimes to a courtroom to force a police department to hand over the files it was sitting on. They printed flyers the evening their daughter disappeared. They distributed them themselves. They hired a private investigator when the police investigation stalled. They sued the Orlando Police Department when the investigation failed. They raised money. They maintained a website. They kept Jennifer's face in front of the public for 20 years. We don't care when. We don't care how, and frankly, we don't care who. We just want our daughter back, for the good or the bad, Drew Kesse said. Joyce Kesse said, she just lit up the room. Everyone loved being around Jen. These are not the words of people who are negotiating with ambiguity. These are the words of people who are refusing it. There is a photograph that exists in this case, 3 photographs really, of a person walking away from a young woman's car. The person's face is behind a fence. It is behind a fence in the first frame. It is behind a fence in the second frame. It is behind a fence in the third frame. A camera that takes a picture every 3 seconds captured 3 chances to see the face of whoever took Jennifer Kesse's car, and the fence was there for all of them. A bloodhound tracked a scent from that car back to the staircase outside her home. A witness saw the car swerving near the exit of her complex, as though 2 people were fighting over the steering wheel. Evidence of a struggle was photographed on the hood of her car. Marks that looked like someone's arms being spread and dragged across the metal. And in October 2025, DNA was found on evidence that had never been tested. Sometimes, in cases like this, the silence around them is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of something waiting to be found. A face behind a fence, a name behind a question, a piece of evidence in a box that no one opened for 19 years. The silence around Jennifer Kesse's disappearance is still loud, and it may finally be breaking.